Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we are going to be replacing the charge pipe on my 340i. In particular, we are going with an Apex built titanium charge pipe. And I know the first thing you guys are probably thinking, why did I spend $1,300 on a charge pipe that does absolutely nothing on my car? And obviously I didn't, I bought it used so I could save $100. But I'm super excited to put this on my car. I'm just a really big fan of titanium, and I haven't done a charge pipe DIY on this channel yet. So now that I'm adding port injection to the 340, I already knew I was going to need a charge pipe with an extended coupler, and this gave me a nice excuse to add a little bling to the engine bay. So we're going to go ahead and get this installed on the car. I'll show you how I do it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. So let's go ahead and install this charge pipe on the B58 engine. It's really nice and convenient because everything is right up front in front of the engine. There are these 3 screws that are pretty easy to access on the throttle body, but the lower part that attaches to the turbo is a little bit more difficult. So we're going to need to remove this entire intake assembly to access those lower clips. So to start off, we're going to remove these clips on the upper intake box. There are 4 clips, one on basically each of the corners. So you'll work your way around with a flathead screwdriver and just pop those clips off. After you do that, you're going to come back and loosen this clamp on the intake. So just use a flathead screwdriver and loosen that. And then you're going to disconnect the MAF sensor. My white tab broke, so I use this little pick tool to loosen it and pop it off. Then you can pull the entire upper intake box off. Just pull it out of the intake hose. And then you're going to remove your intake filter. And then the lower intake box just pulls straight out. It's sitting in 3 little grommets in the engine bay. So just pull straight up, and then you should be able to pull it out of your way. Next, we're going to remove the upper intake hose. And there's one hose clamp that's holding it in place. So just use a flathead screwdriver to loosen that clamp. And then you'll be able to pull the intake hose straight up and get it out of the engine bay. Next, we're going to remove the turbo inlet, and you have a couple emissions hoses that need to be disconnected. I have the Ross Racing PCV delete, so this crankcase hose isn't connected on my car. But if you need to disconnect it, you're basically going to squeeze down on these little rough sections on the connector. And if you squeeze on both sides, you'll be able to pull it off. It'll be coming off of this connection on the valve cover. And then lower down, you're going to have your evap hose connections, which has a similar rough spot on 2 different sides. So again, you're basically going to put a finger on each side, squeeze on those rough sections, and pull it off. Now on my car, the connection is actually broken. So I'm going to use a pick tool to kind of wedge off those clips on each side. And that will give me enough freedom so that I can actually pull the hose off of the turbo inlet. Then if you rotate about 90 degrees to the left, you'll see the C-clip that is holding the turbo inlet onto the turbo. So you'll get your pick tool out and basically hook it under one of those little ears and pull straight up until you see it fully released from the turbo. And once you've got it popped up, then you'll be able to pull the intake inlet off of the turbo. Also, some of the wiring harness for your wastegate and your crankcase hose is connected to the crankcase hose. So I'm going to use this pick tool to pop back the white clip on the wastegate and then remove that connector. And then we're also going to do the same thing for the connector on the crankcase hose heater. So disconnect that one, and then you can pull those wires out of the way so you can fully release the turbo inlet. And now we have access to that lower clip on the charge pipe. In BMW's infinite wisdom, they turned it towards the engine block. So what I recommend is using a flathead screwdriver, putting it underneath that ear and basically trying to push it up. You'll notice that there are black clips holding it in place, so it won't go flying or anything, and it really doesn't come off that far, but it just takes a little bit of patience to get the flathead screwdriver under those connections so that you can pop it up enough where you can actually pull it off of the turbo outlet. But it should come off pretty easily once the clip is released properly. And now it's time for the easy part. So the first thing we'll do is disconnect the connectors for the two sensors on the charge pipe. This is your pressure sensor, and the other one is a temperature sensor, and it's going to be the same thing. You pop out that white clip and then squeeze and remove. Again, I've broken one of the white clips on here, so I only have one, but use what you need if you need a pick tool or whatever to get those connectors off. And then we are going to remove the 3 screws that are holding the charge pipe onto the throttle body. There's one at the bottom, and then there's 2 at the top, so just take your time. It is a T30 screw, so use that and just make sure you get all 3 screws fully removed. And then don't forget, down towards the bottom of the charge pipe, there's a little clip holding it onto one of the radiator hoses. So you basically need to pull the radiator hose back to disconnect it from the charge pipe. Otherwise, it's going to get stuck and hang up at the bottom there. But once you've fully disconnected that, the charge pipe will be fully loose. You'll have to kind of spin it around, do a little ballerina twirl to get it out of your engine bay. But once you do that, you'll have it fully removed and ready to install your new one. And you can also see back here on the back of the charge pipe what that clip looks like. So it's just a little hole, and there's a clip on the radiator hose that snaps into it. So now we will swap over our sensors from the stock charge pipe to our aftermarket one. The first thing we're going to remove is that pressure sensor. It should be a T25 screw. So go ahead and back that screw off and then swap the sensor over to your charge pipe. Keep in mind now you're moving it to a metal charge pipe, so you cannot use the original plastic screw that was holding that pressure sensor in place. So use the new machine screw that came with your charge pipe in order to attach that onto the charge pipe. And next we're going to remove the temperature sensor, and in order to remove this, you're going to use a 17mm box wrench, and the temp sensor is literally screwed into the charge pipe. So you're going to unscrew the sensor itself and then transfer that over to the new charge pipe and screw it into the new threaded hole. And now we are ready for reinstallation. I recommend transferring that C-clip onto the charge pipe and snap it into place. And then when you push it down onto the turbo, it will just snap onto the turbo inlet. Now you'll see me kind of fighting with this a little bit, and it's because the coupler with this charge pipe is still a little bit short for my new port injection manifold. So I ended up actually replacing it with an extended coupler from Vibrant Performance. So you guys will see a picture of that at the end, but just take your time, loosen the clamps in the middle, go ahead and attach the screws onto the throttle body to hold the upper charge pipe in place. And then once you have all of the metal parts fixed, you can adjust the silicone coupler and then use a screwdriver to clamp that down. And then here, of course, we plug back in all of our sensors. So plug in your temp sensor, plug in your pressure sensor, and of course you're going to reinstall the intake. So plug in all of those hoses and everything and reassemble it back to how it was before. And then here is the finished product. I think it looks really good. I know some people are getting some heartburn over the fitment on the Vibrant Performance coupler, but there isn't one that fits our diameter charge pipe perfectly. It's like a 2.4-inch inlet and 2.75 outlet, and this is a 2.5 to 3.0 coupler. But it clamps down, holds boost, works well, and most importantly, it's long enough to work with my new intake manifold. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.